Hey everyone, Alien Theory here. There have been a few more Alien Romulus updates since the last time around, so today I'd like to go over them. Firstly, the movie has officially completed filming. It was announced on Thursday, June 29th, that production in Budapest had wrapped. This brings us all the closer to the new Alien film, but of course, post-production can be a very lengthy process in and of itself. At least, if the filmmakers are lucky enough to be provided with such a luxury and don't have to rush to a set-in-stone release date. There doesn't seem to be too much of a rush when it comes to Alien Romulus, since the release date is still a little over a year away. But another piece of exciting news recently dropped is that it will, in fact, be getting a theatrical release. This began as just a rumor. It was initially expected to be a direct-to-Hulu film, much like Prey, but Disney has confirmed that we'll be able to see it in theaters. The official release date is August 16th, 2024. I'm overjoyed to hear this news. I'm so glad I'll be able to see it in theaters. That's still the ultimate experience for me. I know I can watch it at home any number of times afterward, but the theatrical experience window is often very small and often a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. These days, that window is getting smaller and smaller. But it's not just that. What makes me feel pretty hopeful is the date itself. Surely they could have chosen any old time to release the movie if they didn't care much about it, but it's getting a summer release. That's always a prime season for movies, and it suggests to me that someone, somewhere, in some position at Disney caught wind of how this movie was turning out and decided summer was the way to go. I take it as a very promising sign. And I've always just associated the Alien movies with summer releases. Most of them had been released around that general space of times, and it kind of feels weird when they're not. I think the release date and the release season tends to say a lot about a movie. So how about we take a quick look at the releases of past movies in the series? Alien quite famously made the attempt to repeat the success of Star Wars by repeating its exact release date, May 25th. This was back in 1979 when blockbusters were literally blockbusters, and people would line up around the block to get a chance to see the next big movie. By getting in early on the summer season with a May release, a movie that did well and continued to do well could dominate a good 3 or 4 months at the box office. The move paid off for Alien, and it was, of course, a huge hit. By 1986, things were a little bit different. We were now in an age of multiplexes, so if you wanted to check out Aliens and Top Gun the same day, no problem. Those big event movies and much more were all conveniently playing at the same location, and there'd be no waiting out in the hot sun for a ticket. Thanks, Reagan. Aliens had a peak summer release coming out July 18th, also becoming a huge hit. I think we all know Alien 3's release date very well, May 22nd, 1992. They really wanted those Memorial Day weekend crowds, and that release date was immovable, set before the camera even began rolling. That certainly revealed much of where studios' priorities laid, in that the release date was much more important than the quality of the movie itself. One executive was rumored to have callously told David Fincher that Alien 3 could open on that date with a blank screen and still make money. The movie suffered for it. I wouldn't call Alien 3 a bomb, but it definitely did not make the money they were hoping for. By the time Alien Resurrection came out, they seemed to have switched things up a bit. The movie, to me, feels like a 90s summer blockbuster. You could even argue that it was, in many ways, a parody of sorts of the 90s blockbuster, but it was released on November 26, 1997. This, I suppose, was kind of an experiment to see how well an Alien movie could fare with the holiday season releases, since this was the Thanksgiving weekend of that year in the United States. Similarly to Alien 3, it wasn't exactly a bomb, but it didn't really set the world on fire either. Maybe the best frame of reference we have for how things might turn out for Romulus is Alien vs. Predator from 2004. To date, this is the only Alien movie that saw a release in August. AVP came out on August 13th. Wisely, it was not screened for critics beforehand, likely to avoid some bad word of mouth for what is essentially a critic-proof movie anyway, and they just set it out into the world, hoping for the best. It seemed to have paid off. It won the box office for that weekend, became a decently sized hit, and made Fox a good profit. The most bizarre release date of these all was for the sequel, AVP Requiem, which was unleashed onto the world on Christmas Day, 2007. I think the idea was for an anti-Christmas movie. They were pretty upfront about it. If you wanted a low-grade monster bash instead of the usual array of family epics and Oscar hopefuls, then that's exactly what you got. Its tagline, you may recall, was, "This Christmas, there will be no peace on Earth." It also made a decent profit, but it was a pretty bad movie, bad enough to throw away any plans of an AVP 3 and leave the franchise in limbo for a few years. Prometheus saw Ridley Scott returning to the series and the sci-fi genre itself. It wasn't really marketed as an Alien movie, but the fans, of course, were all well aware of the connections it would have. Similar to the original film's release, it got into the season fairly early, releasing on June 8th, 2012. It was actually able to sneak into the big summer lineup very comfortably between The Avengers in early May and The Dark Knight Rises in late July. It was a very nice spot to have, and it made a good amount of money at the box office, somewhere around $400 million. Maybe not getting into the huge numbers as those superhero releases, but proof there was room for everybody during that season. Alien Covenant, released May 19th, 2017, was not so fortunate and didn't compete so well with the other big movies released around that same time. It was sandwiched between the likes of The Fate of the Furious, which got an even earlier summer start, staying at number 1 at the box office for 3 weeks, and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which was number 1 for 2 weeks prior to Alien Covenant. Then followed by the releases of Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, and Wonder Woman. All immense hits compared to Covenant. A small victory for Covenant. It won its weekend, just barely taking Guardians 2 from the top spot, but it just didn't have the staying power. Our beloved xenomorph was lost in a sea of fast cars, superheroes, transformers, and minions during the summer of 2017. But the state of movies and their releases has once again changed with the times. Things are more unpredictable now than ever before. Now more than ever, we're seeing these big movies bomb at number 1. The budgets are so inflated that they're just not able to make a profit. With all the bizarre loopholes in Hollywood, for some people at the top, that's a good thing. But generally, you would think, if a movie makes a profit, it's considered a success. Fair enough, right? While currently we don't have any details on the budget for Alien Romulus, it's pretty safe to assume it isn't as gargantuan as the previous 2 movies in the series. Fede Alvarez has proven in the past that he's been able to make movies with small budgets that end up looking much more expensive than they actually were. More importantly, we can hope it's a quality movie. Aliens vs. Predator Requiem already proved, yes, of course, you can make a piece of shit and slap not 1 but 2 recognizable brand names on it, and you can run away with some profit. You're still left with a cheap piece of shit movie, and audiences not too eager to fall for the trick next time around. But if you make something that's good, something to be proud of, given the proper time for post-production, that's also inexpensive and turns a profit, then everybody wins. I think the stars are aligning for Romulus, and this August release date is a key element. Should it become a commercial and critical hit, it could end up leading the way for a new and very different future for franchise filmmaking. Maybe it can pave the way where we see less focus on these giant budgets and more attention given to hiring the talent to see things through. Or maybe I'm being far too optimistic. Either way, I look forward to the usual comments saying this movie is going to suck and the franchise is dead. I'll leave with one last piece of news that has come out recently. This comes from our friends at the Perfect Organism podcast, with their secret source who has already proven to be on the money about the theatrical release rumor. This news is that it seems the working title, Alien Romulus, will be sticking. We can, at this point, expect Alien Romulus to be the official title of the new Alien movie. I'm inclined to believe this. I trust the folks at Perfect Organism. I actually joined them for their podcast for an episode recently, where we talked about certain expectations for the new film, which was a lot of fun to do. We had actually been back and forthing for years at this point, trying to find a time to come together, and I'm thrilled to have finally been able to be part of their conversation. I'll leave a link to that episode below if you're interested in checking it out. And I'll be keeping up with all the news as it comes out, and I'll continue to look forward to Alien Romulus. So stay tuned for more, and until next time, this is Alien Theory, signing off.